if you do blinds at home and you're finding it a bit tough at the start, keep at it and keep trying like different ones, and eventually you get better at it. Welcome to the blind battle of the Redwood Empire Cast Strength California Whiskies. I'm your host Sam, and this is Whiskey and SV. All right, tonight is going to be an exciting night, as it is always when we're drinking some whiskey. And tonight I'm going to be going close to home, right? California whiskey is not something that's very well known. When you think about California and any type of liquor, you probably think about wine, which is not a liquor, but you know what I mean. When you're thinking about like alcoholic beverages, you think about wine. And in fact, California wine is very well known around the world, and it's rather expensive in other parts of the world. We're very lucky to get it at a reasonable price here. But I was in Europe recently, and I wanted to order a California wine, and it was one of the most expensive stuff on their menu. So when you think about California, you probably don't think necessarily about whiskey. But I think Redwood Empire is one of those brands where it is definitely worth giving them a try. Now, they're a newer distillery, so they're not going to be like one of these Kentucky or even Tennessee distilleries that have been around for years and years and years and have a huge amount of like older stock. So even though I have seen some older Redwood Empires, the Haystack series usually, that's I think that is sourced whiskey. These cast strength series these are their own distillate, and they're all pretty young. So I believe the youngest one here is actually 3 years, and the oldest one is like 4 years. So not going to be getting old whiskey, but it's really well priced. I think these are in the order of $70 or $75 each, and they're really, really good for the price. And their craft presentation. So this one is the bourbon. It is called the Pipe Dream, and it is uncut, unfiltered. It is bottled at 116.8 proof or 58.4%. The mash bill is 74% corn, 20% rye, 4.5% malted barley, and 1.5% wheat. So technically a bourbon. Next, we have the Emerald Giant. This is the Emerald Giant is their rye whiskey. So the rye whiskey is bottled at 116.4 proof, and it has a very high rye mash bill. It is 95% rye, 94% rye, 5% malted barley, and 1% wheat. So 58.2% ABV. That is the Emerald Giant. Last but not least, this one is called the Lost Monarch, and it is a blend of straight whiskeys, meaning probably it's like basically a blend of like the rye, and it's like a halfway through these two, like basically half of it is the rye and half of it is the bourbon. So it does say blended 55% straight rye, 45% straight bourbon. So basically, I think if you take the other two and you blend them, you get sort of this one. Okay, so again, as I said, these are all about the same price. The age statement is actually on them. Yes, so the bourbon, it says, is at least 4 years old. The rye, it says at least 4 years old as well. And for the blend, it says at least 3 years old, which is interesting. Even though these are both at least 4 years, the blend is at least 3 years. Okay, so let's pour these and do the blind, because I'm really interested to know how these perform in um, in a blind. I think I've generally, from what I remember, I've mostly enjoyed the Lost Monarch, which is the blend the most. I think my second favorite when I tried it was the Emerald Giant. And my least favorite was actually the bourbon, interestingly. Um, but we'll see what the blind says. Okay, cool. let's let's make sure we get these right. So the bourbon will be number one. The rye will be number two, and the blend will be number three. So let's go ahead and put all of these here. Make sure we don't drop anything. All right, so let's get all the labels there. And as usual, we will nose them first, and then we'll taste. So straight away, this one is got quite a bit of rye on it. I get like very those distinct vegetal notes. Given that these are all in the order of almost 60%, they're surprisingly not very. There's not a lot of like ethanol or anything that like really burns the nose. So this one has a lot more actually minty rye notes to it. This is definitely like more bourbon. So the bourbon is kind of more like that kind of it is a younger bourbon, right? So it has those kind of non-toasted fresh oak type aromas to it. Obviously vanilla and caramel, but fresh oak is what I get from it. So I'm fairly confident that this has to be the bourbon. This one just there's that minty kind of like vegetal note to it, and this one is kind of like a mix of both. So I think if I was to guess, I would say this is the bourbon, this is the rye, and this is the Boo Rye, the bourbon rye, or the Lost Monarch. So um, we'll see. That's what the nose says to me, but let's try the palate and see. It is a bit nippy. I mean, you can definitely tell that it's young. It's not, if you're used to older kind of bourbons, you can definitely tell that this is younger. Having said that, it's pretty nice. I mean, like I get like lots of caramel and vanilla on this, um, and other than the kind of youthful ethanol notes that come out, there's also quite a bit of like those spices that complement like the mid to late palate, and the finish is kind of a little bit grainy, but generally pretty pleasant. It's very um, lingering with sweetness, I would say. Quite a bit of oak on that as well. Yeah, I like it. It's very nice. Um, Pretty bold whiskey. If you're, having a marathon night and kind of like getting to the stage where you need something more bold to kind of stick out, I think this will do pretty nicely. Okay, let's see. Definitely a lot more rye, like just lots of vegetal, minty, herbal kind of notes, kind of like a little bit medicinal, kind of like mint extract, a lot more spices, a lot more mouthwatering. Actually, I have to say, I'm kind of gravitating towards this more than this. I kind of like that um, really nice spicy rye note. I think rye is one of those things that can be much younger and taste a lot better than older. Rye can do much better at a younger age, I would say. Okay, last but not least, let's go for this. What I think is the bourbon. It's fine. I think what I get on this is just really young oak. It could really do with being a bit older, to be honest. I mean, it's not bad at all. I mean, it comes across as a little bit grainy and just a little bit too much like young oak. I feel like maybe even if they toasted the barrel a little more to get those kind of like more deep sugary caramel and vanilla notes, it would have been better at a young age. I think they've gone for much more like probably a very low char barrel, and it just tastes young, and the oak is, it really feels like you kind of like got pretty young oak and just like ran it through, or had staves or something, because it just doesn't feel like it's super well integrated, and tastes a bit young. Not bad, but just like I think given how much better like the rye feels, I think this is lacking. So yeah, so I'm going to stop right there. I think my favorite by far is the rye. Then I would say, which I think this is the Emerald Giant. I think this one has to be the Lost Monarch, which would mean that this is the bourbon or the pipe dream. So let's do the reveal. I'll make sure. So first one, this is number 3, which is the blend. Yes, that is correct. This one is number 2. Yep, that is the Emerald Giant, which would make this number 1. Correct. That is the bourbon. Okay, so I think I'm getting better at this. At least, even though I may not be able to get like the best notes, hopefully, I can definitely tell the difference now between like the different. Well, I mean, for these, I guess it should be obvious, right? Because it's like bourbon versus rye. But I wasn't sure if I would be able to tell like the difference between kind of like the blend. I thought that might throw me off, but it's actually pretty obvious. I was like pretty confident that I could tell these apart. So if you do blinds at home and you're finding it a bit tough at the start, keep at it and keep trying like different ones, and eventually you get better at it. And it's kind of rewarding to be able to kind of tell the differences, even though probably my vocabulary in terms of like the tasting notes may still not be fully there. But I think I'm getting better at like picking up the right notes. And yeah, so I'll stop right there. Thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you are having a great weekend and a great start to your new year so far. And I hope to see you in my next episode. Take care and have a good one. Bye.